Hello, everyone. This is Nora Armani, founding artistic director of the Socially Relevant Film Festival, New York. And I am so happy to announce to you a new series we put together in partnership with the Lebanese American University in New York. It's called Unbroken: Memory and Identity in Lebanese Cinema. The reason for this series is to mark the first anniversary of the terrible explosion that happened last August that completely shattered Beirut and created so much damage, so much human loss, buildings, heritage, and a lot of major damage. The economy was already suffering, COVID was hitting, and so on. And when this explosion happened, it created a total disaster and chaos in Lebanese society. And it is not over yet. Situation is very, very difficult. We have been dealing with filmmakers who are having such a hard time to even uploading their films to our streaming channel. This series opened last Tuesday at the Lincoln Center, at the Elinor Bunin Munroe Film Center of the Lincoln Center, with two award-winning films from Lebanese cinema, namely Ziad Doueri's Insult, and also a more recent film, Oualid Mouanes' 1982, which was a New York premiere. We had a fabulous opening, and it was wonderful after all these months of lockdown and confinement and all that, to see actual people get together to celebrate Lebanese cinema, to celebrate heritage, identity in Lebanese cinema and memory. This explosion shattered and made a lot of destruction. But one thing it could not destroy, it is the memory. The memory of better days, the memory of wonderful creation, of creativity. So we are here today to celebrate that creativity. And on this occasion, I would like to thank the Lebanese community for partnership. And I'm not saying the word partnership casually, because it has been most wonderful experiences. They were fully rolling up their sleeves, working with us tirelessly to put together this program of two films in person and a balance of 16 wonderful award-winning shorts, documentaries, features, including some favorites together. A program that is streaming now as we speak. And for me to still running, and you're able to get all the information you need from the Socially Relevant Festival website. I would like to thank the artists who which has I would to introduce. We would like to introduce who is a board member of the Socially Relevant, and he.
Thank you, Nora, and welcome to everybody tuning in and watching this YouTube channel for the Socially Relevant Film Festival. Our plan for this hour has been to invite NADINE LABAKI, and the reality of the world today is that connections are not always smooth or efficient, but we're hoping, and in fact, as I speak, maybe I have some magic touch, because I believe Nadine is joining the call. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing someone that I think most of us know as a extraordinary international film director. And I'm simply going to say, welcome, Nadine, and please join our conversation.
Thank you. I don't know how well you can hear me.
I hear you very well right now, and hopefully
great.
that'll continue. Yeah, but yeah, we were just getting started, and but it's wonderful to have you here, and we're looking forward to really having a conversation at a fairly large level. But I have to start with a personal note. You and I met several years ago when you were in New York screening Capharnaüm. In fact, I saw you a few times. You won't remember that because you met a lot of people, but you might remember the one time you brought Zane to the theater, and he had just gotten off the airplane. I think he was 10 or 12 or 13 at the time. He was totally exhausted. But he did the job, and what it really did is bring to life a film and the people in the film in a very profound and powerful way. And so that was memorable for me.
So I'm so sorry about that. So please, I'm changing computers because my internet quit suddenly. Welcome, Nadine. I didn't get a chance to welcome you properly. So please, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that the experience of seeing him as jet lagged as he was really made the community that you brought together and created for Capharnaüm very real and very meaningful and very human. And it was an experience I think everybody there appreciated. As you know, this program is themed Unbroken, Memories and Identity in Lebanese Cinema. And we have created a platform that in partnership and with the Lebanese American University, who's kind enough to host me today, to present a number of films, including at Lincoln Center 2 nights ago, 1982. Directed by Oualid Mouanes, who is present, and starring yourself. We're also delighted to have Caramel as part of our streaming program. And if I can just take a moment to, through you, thank Zaina Sifir for the amazing work she did in helping us, a wonderful terrific support, and we're so grateful to her as well as to you for joining us. But let me let Nora take it and move us into the conversation.
Thank you. And again, apologies for some reason, even though you know how technology works, you prepare everything in advance. You have the cord, you have this, you have that, and you try it. And then the moment comes and wow, surprise. And like Agnes Varda said, she said, chance is my assistant director. So I guess you get to improvise whatever happens. So Nadine, we are so honored, so happy to have you with us. Not only to have your film Caramel with us, which is a huge favorite of mine and has always been, but also to have you in person right here on our screen. So there we go.
Thank you so much for having me. And I know, in spite of all the complications and the connection problems, I'm sure that we're gonna be able to communicate somehow and communicate our ideas. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for this great initiative. So yeah, I think we'll do our best, and I'm always very grateful to whatever life is gonna bring our way. Even in my way of filming and everything I do, I just keep a very, very big space for improvisation. So let's improvise now as much as we can.
Yes, absolutely. And I am feeling like maybe not necessarily, I guess probably even in Caramel, but also specifically in Capharnaüm, probably improvisation had a very, very important role, even if it's not mentioned in the credits. So maybe you want to tell us about that, since that's how we started.
Yes, for Capernaum in particular, the adventure was very much open to whatever life was going to bring our way, because obviously we are, as much as we can, trying to be as close to the reality as possible, because it was felt as a as a duty in a way, not to just imagine the story or fictionalize it or come with a very structured base, but actually to be as close to reality as possible. So trying to do that, obviously you need to let life also bring its own surprises and see how the characters are going to develop in those circumstances exactly the way they are, and just I tried as much as I can to ask them to be and not to act, and just to be who they are in certain situations, and to be as close to their truth as possible. So in order to do that, also you have to go out of your limits and go out of your safe zone, and just see what life is going to bring your way.
Yes, absolutely. It's the best approach. What can we do? And look at us after a year and a half of being locked down because of COVID. Who was expecting this? Nobody could, in their wildest imagination, think that something like this was going to be thrown our way. And it changed everybody's way of thinking. It changed everybody's priorities. And we were talking with the filmmakers a couple of days ago of the other films, and the question was, what were the challenges when you were filming? And then I suddenly had to rephrase it, because yes, we are talking about films that had been done like a year, 2 years ago with challenges, but what about now? It's even the biggest challenges are now. So Michael has a lot more to say about those questions, but
well, actually, I would like to go to Capernaum. I mean to Caramel, because we are streaming it, and I saw an interview with David Frost of you in 2007, and he said that he's usually, unlike other films made by Lebanese filmmakers, he said then, this one is not about war, it's about love.
yeah.
And there's still a lot of war and probably not enough love, but the capacity for what you were expressing in Caramel really spoke to life, real life. And so let me ask how you see that theme or that formula of life, love, and war working today in your work and what you're doing.
I don't know. It's a difficult question. I think love is in everything that we try to do, and everything, at least in everything I try to do, love is always the sparkle. Love for a situation, love for a certain character, love for a country or a city or a person, or Or for a theme, especially for a theme. I mean, sometimes love becomes love for a certain theme or a certain question becomes so big that it becomes an obsession, and you start wanting to dig more. So obviously in a time where war is everywhere, I don't think we are able to divert our attention from it. But at the same time, we can't also not continue living. So I think, and in our life is going to be, you know, a mixture of everything, including love. So even if we're going to be, because obviously we get inspired by everything that is around us, we get inspired by the situation of the place we live in or the region we live in, and unfortunately there's war everywhere. I mean, the big WAR is everywhere around us. So I don't think we are able to divert our attention, and we become a little bit schizophrenic, I think, when we are talking about something else, or when we are trying to maybe sometimes just not wanting to you know, delve into it or dive into it because it hurts. At the same time, we feel very schizophrenic, not talking about the situation. So I am personally, to answer your question, I am in that phase right now in my life where I'm a bit confused. I'm a bit lost. There's so many things so many themes that we need to talk about, so many things that we need to change, so many frustrations and anger towards the situation we are living in, especially in Lebanon. So at the same time, it's difficult to talk about it because you need to have the right distance from it, and you feel schizophrenic not talking about it and talking about something else. So it's a whole confusion. So I don't know if I'm expressing myself the right way, or you are able to understand what I'm saying, because maybe, you know, maybe it's too all over the place. But it's also what's going on in my head too right now.
Right. But I'm going to turn it to a little slightly different direction, because I'm reminded of something. There's an Ethiopian author, I don't know if you've read, Maza Mengistu, and she wrote, "When we speak of war, we hear it from men, and that is what shapes what gets remembered. It also determines what gets forgotten. Our theme of memory and identity is about preserving memories and not forgetting." How you bring a perspective that I think she was speaking of in how the world understands history and memory. And I wonder, again, how that has influenced you as a preeminent international director.
I couldn't hear the question. Sorry. Can you repeat that again? You keep breaking.
I'm sorry. It was a brilliant question, but I was
so sorry.
I was really just talking about memory and identity and how it's preserved. We talked about caramel, and but I was mentioning an author who was talking about how often memories of things like war are the memories of men, and what gets remembered or what gets forgotten. Or is it still getting through? Am I getting through? Not so good.
Not so good.
Okay.
Yeah, well, maybe let me phrase it too, because in Where Do We Go Now, we see the opening scene with all the women. And I think that you're making a statement about the fact that when there is a war and there is a loss, the women are there and they are the ones who are suffering the most. So Michael's question is about when war is happening, it's usually the male point of view. It's the men who are talking. It's the men's story that is being written. Even in history in general, it's always the male perspective. So that's basically the question. What is your position about that?
I mean, this is interesting because yes, we've noticed, you know, especially when I was in school, I've noticed many times that in history, in our history classes, when they talk about the people who actually made history or certain periods of history or certain changes or created certain movements, women are usually always absent, not present. There's very rarely that you hear that we talk about women, or that you hear about women that made history. And it's something that's been can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, I don't usually start writing a film where the women are the protagonists or the main characters, and saying, you know, now I'm going to make a film about women. It doesn't work this way. I just maybe most of the time talk about women because I also know this perspective. I know this point of view. This is something I really as a woman know very deeply. Even sometimes, you know, we have these sort of common codes, or common codes of conduct, or common perceptions of the world that I know very well. So I start talking about my own perspective to be as honest and as close to the truth as possible. So for me, it's a different perspective, and it's a very needed perspective. It doesn't mean it's a better perspective, but it's a much needed perspective because it's a different perspective. And this is what I try to do most of the time when I'm talking about women, because I know I have a role to play as a woman in this society. And I'm just, you know, trying to voice out this different perspective, or this different take on things. So I don't know if I answered your question, because like I told you, I mean, I hear half of the question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're hearing me. I don't know if you're hearing me well.
Yes, that was a complete answer.
We heard you perfectly, but exactly. And I can make a parallel actually between Where Do We Go Now and Caramel, even though they are completely different in nature, but at the core of it is the group of women, and the group of women that determine how the action unfolds and the relationships between the different women. And I had a question about the way you work on, is this like kind of a workshop situation, or do you write it first and then everybody comes and does their roles, or, you know, how is it put together?
You know, there isn't one recipe. It depends on the film, depends on what the film needs. I've never really done many workshops, and I try to keep the authenticity of the moment by not rehearsing it too much. And usually, until now, what happens is most of the time my actors don't know what. They don't have a script in their hands. They don't memorize anything. They don't memorize any lines. I try to keep it away from them so they can be as close to their truth as possible. So for me, I'm not interested in them just repeating a phrase I just wrote for the script. For me, it's about, you know, developing it. It's about adapting it to their own personality or to their own truth, and adapting it to the way they talk, or to their accent, or who they are in real life. It's usually very close to their own personality, because I usually work. I mean, I've worked with a few actors, but most of the time my actors are not professional actors. For most of the time, they are first-time actors. So what I try to do, and of course, because they don't have the process of an actor of memorizing a line and saying it in a very natural way, it's a completely different process. It's mainly the opposite than what we usually do, because usually an actor actually adapts to a script that you've written, or a certain lighting, or a certain mise en scène, or a certain in our case, it's the opposite. I actually adapt to their rhythm. I adapt to their needs. I adapt to their way of talking, to their personality, because they are not actors. So it's really the complete opposite. And I don't do workshops, and I don't rehearse because for me, I want to keep the honesty and the truth of that first moment when they are in a certain situation, or where they say a certain dialogue, or
totally understand, because as an actor myself, the more you memorize, the more you do the lines, every time you redo it, you're locking in things, and then you're losing the spontaneity, and you're moving further and further away from the spontaneity. And I want to share a personal experience. Every time I've noticed that on the auditions where I've gone and actually done a cold reading, it has worked a lot better than the ones where I've prepared days in advance and memorized and said, I'm going to do like this, I'm going to do like that, So I totally understand what you're saying, especially the nature of your films are so, I don't want to say they look documentary, but they look so real. That is the beauty of it. Like in Caramel, we feel like I'm going to just walk down that same street in a minute now, and I'm going to get into that salon and have my hair done in a second. It's so real. It's so tangible. And the characters are so alive, and I applaud you for that effort. Really amazing. Michael?
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, that's the biggest challenge for me. It's sort of, I'm more interested in doing this kind of adventure, because I think I get bored from just sort of executing what I have written on paper. Of course, we always start with a written, solid script with the dialogues and everything. But I'm not interested in just going on set and executing exactly what is written on paper. I'm not interested in that. So I just try as much as I can to change it and give some space for improv, and try to be as close to the truth of the actors as much as I can. It doesn't mean that this is the right way. It's just, there's many different ways of, approaching acting. And for me, I don't like the word acting a lot. I just prefer being who you are. I'm just more interested in that kind of cinema, this school of cinema. It doesn't mean that this is, I'm always going to be doing this, but for the time being, this is the most challenging part of the whole adventure for me, is really getting to know this new family I'm working with, because they become like family, and getting to dissect a little bit human nature and understand human nature and human behavior, and try to adapt to it while we are working together. It's it's very similar to documentary in that sense. It's always a very thin line between documentary and fiction. Yes. I try to maybe, how can I say, I mean, direct the certain fiction that is already written on paper towards something that is more documentary and more real. It's a very thin line actually between both, and I like this. I usually like this challenge. I'm sorry, I have to do something. I have to open for the dog. 1 second. Okay, 1
Go
second.
ahead.
Sorry,
All
sorry.
right.
Problem. Yes. See, this is another improvisation moment. We
Right.
don't know when the dog is supposed to walk in.
Yes, sorry about that.
So
Okay.
we hadn't rehearsed this. We didn't rehearse that the dog comes in at a certain moment.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
could talk this whole hour about Caramel, because both Nora and I think the audience watching love that movie. And but I have to say one more thing about it. We may say other things, and that is it's noteworthy also because it represents the starting point of an important partnership in your life in 2007. And if I may, happy anniversary. 14
Thank you.
years. If we had realized it was last Thursday, we would have moved this up
Oh,
a week
wow.
so we could have celebrated it. But in any case,
Thank
I
you
happen
so
to
much.
be very partial to international music, but particularly Lebanese music. I thank Yasmin Hamdan for really bringing me into that, and I've become. And there's a music composer that's important to Caramel and Capharnaüm and your other work. But I guess my question about, because both you and Kelly have been very open publicly about your partnership and how it works, if you want to comment on how that has influenced your the way you've thought about the stories you're telling, and the importance of music in telling that story.
And this is one of the results of this partnership
Oh, so
between Khan and I. Sorry. Sorry about that. This is Mayroon. This is we have a 12-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
Yes, so I just wanted to say that what makes it very interesting and very emotional, this sort of this partnership or this life that we live together, is that so sorry about that. So it's so what I mean is exactly this. Our life and our work, everything is just so mixed up and so fusional at the same time. I can't imagine myself being completely disconnected from my personal life when I'm working. So it's all just one roller coaster of family. Work, love, partnership. It's all of it combined. The way we live. So it makes the music really part of such a needed part of anything I do. I mean, it comes naturally to anything I do, and the music becomes one of the characters in any of the films. I can't imagine any of the films I've worked on without Khalid's music and without his collaboration and his touch, and he's here, ever since the idea sparkles or comes up. So the music becomes really like one of the characters.
Yes.
So it's an amazing, I mean, I think it's an amazing luxury and chance for me to, be sharing my life with the music composer of my films, because music is a very important, part of my life. And so this all makes sense to me. Everything is so, how can I say, like I said, everything is so intertwined. which makes it more interesting.
For some reason, I'm prompted to mention to people watching, if they haven't seen on Netflix a series of homemade films about life during the virus, COVID.
Yeah.
There's one called Maroon and the Unicorn. We haven't seen the unicorn yet, but I think we know where that,
this is
that came from.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's really wonderful because this is life, you know. You don't want to isolate one part of your being from the other. The secret is to be able to integrate everything so that one doesn't get in the way of the other. That's where the beauty lies. And
especially when you want to be part of it all, when you want to be involved in your children's life and your family life and whatever they're eating or whatever's being cooked or whatever, you know, it's all one amazing experience. So I don't like to compartimenter. I don't know how you say it.
Compartmentalize.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Which brings me to another question, because this is a fantastic creative partnership, which doesn't always work, I must tell you, because a lot of times people who are in the same profession, sometimes it becomes too much and the bomb explodes. But it looks like in your case, thank God, everything is beautiful. So
sometimes it does explode. Sometimes, you know? Many times it explodes. But I mean, we try to make it, you know,
that's important too, because it explodes and then
then you have sparkles. Yes.
Voila. But you also get offers to participate in other projects that are not necessarily generated by you or your husband or by your partnership. One of the examples was Oualid Mouanes' 1982. But I also know that you have standing offers from Egyptian producers to participate in future productions, or maybe other Arab, because let's face it, not only in the Arab world, you're such a bankable name and great actress, besides being a very talented director. So maybe you want to tell us about how you approach these projects and how do you decide which ones to do, which ones not to do, and pick your choices. We froze for a second. Are we?
The need for this kind of adventure, and sometimes it's also the character that, you know, maybe draws me into wanting to experiment. I usually like acting because this is the only place where actually I'm allowed to experiment my other natures, and experiment because, you know, in life you can't really be someone else every day, and this is the only place where you are actually experimenting different lives, is when you are acting and when you are becoming somebody else, and you are shielded. In a way, you are shielded by the fact that it's not you are playing someone else. So sometimes you allow yourself, especially when you live in the Arab world and you live in a place where society's pressure is sometimes paralyzing, unfortunately, even if, you know, we tend to sometimes say otherwise, but it's sometimes it is paralyzing. So I think it allows me also to experiment different things that I wouldn't dare experimenting maybe as being myself. So this is what draws me usually to acting in other films. It allows me to really experiment my other natures. It's really the only place where it's actually legal for you to be someone else. Otherwise, in real life, you can't be somebody else every day. It's you know, you're either labeled as crazy, or I don't know, people would think you're strange or peculiar. But acting is really the only place where you are you can experiment those other natures, and this is what draws me to acting. And it's also the experience, or the experience with a certain director, or the need for a certain kind of adventure. It's not very calculated usually. Sometimes I make bad choices, but it doesn't matter. For me, it's really the process that interests me the most. It's not the result. And I rarely see any film I am in more than one time. I like to discover it, and I watch it one time, and then I don't go back to watching it again, because I feel I don't know, it was part of my life for a moment, and then I don't know, I move on to something else. So it's really about the process, about the adventure itself, about the new family that you make, about experimenting your other self in a way, and living this other life for a certain amount of time, and then moving on to something else.
We talk about this, our program this week, as a platform for Lebanese cinema and the larger story of Arab cinema and creativity. But I can't help but make a passing comment about Capharnaüm and the stunning response you had in China, particularly, and in India. And I wonder what you drew from that to appreciate the international message and the international platform that you're speaking to and you represent.
I mean, it was obviously a very surprising response. I didn't expect this film to be as successful in China or in India. But I guess that there was, something similar in certain situations that children face sometimes in this part of the world. And I mean, I remember that there's this phenomena in China called forgotten children. It's very very known over there, of children, of parents leaving their children in the mountains to go work in the cities. And sometimes those children are really left on their own for a very long time. And some of them face lots of hardships. And so I think, I don't know, there was something in the culture where they found similarities, or so it was very surprising for me. It was a surprise for everyone else also that that Capharnaüm was as popular over there. Yeah, it was. I wish it was financially as popular because unfortunately China keeps everything to themselves.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Maybe I should let a couple of audience questions. I'll read them. They put the questions in the comments. I have Lucy here, who says, can Nadine tell us about her next project as a director, maybe, or as an actress? We cannot wait for her next film. And then there is another question about casting, but I'll let you answer this first.
It's as a director, it's been, like I said before, it's been very difficult to work on a new project with everything that's been going on in Lebanon. Unfortunately, as you all know, the situation is really bad, and it's a mixture of lots of anger and frustration, and unfortunately this has been the situation of many people in Lebanon. So it's been difficult to think about another project for the time being, because I think I need the right, distance, and anything I will be talking about, if it's about Lebanon or the situation, I need to talk about it very responsibly. And so I need really the right approach and the right angle on things. So it's been difficult to think about it. when it comes to acting, I have two new projects that will soon be released. I was one of the protagonists in Munia El's new film. It's called Costa Brava. It will be shown very soon in it's in the Venice. It's selected in Venice, and I also was in Perfect Strangers. The Lebanese version of Perfect Strangers, the Italian movie Perfect Strangers. So I was in that also. So those are my projects for the time being.
That's beautiful. And also let's go to the next question, because it also kind of goes to that. Jennifer Peralta Ajemian, who's a New York-based casting director, is asking, what is your approach to casting? Do you search for non-actors on your own?
I usually have a very very strong team of people who are very passionate and curious about people, and they usually go for a very wild sort of casting on the streets, or in their families, or people they know. Or we don't. I mean, sometimes we do auditions, but it's really mainly auditions for people who have never really done any acting before. So I've usually worked with non-professional actors, and we try to look for them really everywhere in life, in public places, and people that lead us to other people, that lead us to other people, and it's a very organic and very interesting process. And I'm very lucky, because I'm usually working with people who are very passionate about other people and very curious about other people, and that are able to really take their time and ask the right questions. And it's not a usual audition, and it's not a classical way of auditioning.
Yeah.
As we talk about this, I'm reminded of something the playwright Sadala Wanus wrote something some time ago, and he said, "We are doomed by hope. Come what way, come what may, today cannot be the end of history." Sometimes it's hard. I think we got a glimpse of a little bit of hope a few minutes ago with your daughter, but what do you say today to particularly the young Lebanese and their hope and their dreams? What inspiration can you give them to feel confident and hopeful that this isn't the end of history?
I don't know if it's part of my nature, but I'm usually optimistic. It's the only thing that keeps me going. I try to turn my anger or my frustration. It becomes my fuel in a way. It becomes my fuel to change the situation around me. So this is what gives me hope. Actually, not only being frustration regarding a certain situation, but trying to turn it around and trying to see what I can do as a human being to completely, change the situation. It's not always easy, but I don't think cynicism or becoming a complete,
We're
fatalist.
having internet issues again.
Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you, Nadine.
Yeah.
Yes. So hope is the, I think, only thing we have left. You know, a few months ago, I came across an interview with a nurse that was leaving Lebanon because of the situation, because she couldn't survive anymore, and she had to make a tough decision to leave the country. And she was saying Lebanon is like a drug. It's addictive, but it also destroys you. And I think she's right. I think we have a very contradictory, I don't know, situation with our country. It's a sort of a love and hate relationship, because everything about it is frustrating, but at the same time, we feel like we have a mission staying here, and I see it as a mission. Lebanon is my mission. My country is my mission. And this is what makes me stay here. No matter how difficult the situation is, there's always this will, or this will to change the situation. And this is what keeps me going, no matter how big the frustration is. Yeah.
Yeah, which brings us to the next question. Kind of, it's related to what you were saying. Albert is asking, what do you see as the future of filmmaking and the arts in Lebanon? Is there anything the diaspora can do?
The diaspora can do a lot. First of all, the diaspora can vote for the right people in the next parliamentary elections. Can be very present in helping the right people and supporting the right people to be in the right place, and in toppling down this whole, political class that brought us to this situation. And regarding the situation or the future of cinema, I'm always, like I said, I'm always hopeful. No matter how difficult things are getting, I think we have a lot to say. We have a lot to say as artists, as filmmakers. There are so many stories that will come out of the struggle that we are living in, and everything we are living, and that there are so many stories that need to be told. And I think we will get to tell them one way or the other. They will find their way to the world. So in that way, I am hopeful. It's never been easy, and it's never going to be easy living in this part of the world. But I wouldn't change it for anything. I wouldn't. Yeah. This is,
Yeah, because it's part of the identity. And as an artist, as a creative person, as a filmmaker, an actor even, that's how you get your inspiration. That's how you feed. So it's like cutting a tree from its roots and taking it somewhere else, the soil, or it might but the fruit it will bear will not have the same taste. As we eat here tomatoes in the United States, they don't taste anything like the tomatoes in Lebanon. Just a little example, And as a displaced person myself, I totally understand what you're saying. And an actor creates best in their mother tongue. An artist creates best in their own environment. It's natural. And of course, the difficulties that we are talking about in this film industry. Earlier, I was on this Clubhouse session, and everybody was talking about the fact that, now casting directors can get submissions from all over the world because it has opened up. It's not local anymore. You can, yes. And suddenly you're competing with 500 additional people where in reality, there may have been only 300 in the pot. But by the same token, the number of projects have increased. A lot more people have access to creativity. So it's just to find our own niche, to find our own place. And when one has found it, not to let it go, which is really great, because a lot of times we don't realize what we have until after we have lost it.
But it doesn't end. It keeps going. And I was very taken by your new movie, Costa Brava, and the presentation of in what they call a near future Beirut, but the subject is climate and the climate change, climate challenge. So it you know, there's just no end to the war and the wars, and
there's no end to the struggle, no matter where you live, where you are. There's always a struggle somewhere, somehow. I think in that way, we've come to the realization, I think, or to the conclusion that our systems need to change. Our systems have created so many injustices, so much inequality. We've created such an ecological chaos. We've created such inequalities between people that, I mean, we can't go on living the way we do. I mean, we have built walls, we have created borders and gates. We have divided ourselves in groups, in parties, in religions. I think we need to find new ways in order to really keep going. And I think in spite of everything that COVID has done, I think it is a sort of a wake-up call in a way for us to change our ways. Yeah.
Well,
And
so go ahead, Nora.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The strongest lesson, the most important lesson that we should learn from COVID, and not necessarily start partying right away, as it has been made clear that it's not ending. Even people with vaccines are getting sick. Even new variants are coming up. So it means that we do need to take this seriously and think about the global aspect of it. It's no longer, it's little war in Lebanon. A revolution in Afghanistan. This, that, the other. It doesn't concern me. It's not true. It concerns us all. The planet is aching. The planet is dying. And if we are not heeding this wake-up call as a race, as the human race, not as this country or that country, this culture or that culture, then all of us are doomed. So I think you're absolutely right there. And sometimes situations of crisis have the silver lining in them, which allow us to look at things differently and reevaluate our priorities and say, okay, what do I do now?
You know, there's a saying, I don't remember who said it. I read it somewhere. Justice will not be served unless the people who are not affected by unless the people who are not affected by a certain crisis, become affected, not affected, but become
part of it.
Not aware, but become, I can't find the word, become.
One of the parties, one of the players in the thing, maybe.
Exactly. So I think, and the the 4th of August, Beirut, the Beirut port explosion, created this sort of I mean, for me, I find it very strange that the whole world is not actually doing something about it, or acknowledging it as a crime against humanity, because it is a crime against humanity, and we should not be begging for the truth. I mean, the whole world should be claiming the truth with us, and in that sense, I feel like, how come we are? I mean, this is how come we are so how can I say? How come we are so closed in our own bubble, or just, it's as if each country is minding their own business, and I imagine this happening somewhere else in the world. Imagine this happening in the United States, or in France, or in, I think the whole world would have been, demanding justice.
Yeah. The quote
but in
you
our
were,
case, it's not. In our case, it's just as if it was just another accident, just another day in the Middle East, because people are used to things happening this way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me maybe, as we're approaching the end of our time, ask you an easy question. But really, actually, it's not. But as you look at the body of work you've done as a writer, as an actor, as a director, as a filmmaker, as a creator, is there a moment or an event or a time that you can look back on now, or when it happened, to say, this is why I do what I do. This is why it's all worthwhile. Is there something in as you see your mission in your creative work that you can look at and say, this is why the sacrifice was worth it?
Every time, every time I work on a new film, or there's always it has to be worth it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it doesn't have any meaning for me. It doesn't, because it's so difficult to work on a film. It's such a struggle. It's like a battlefield. You sometimes you lose yourself sometimes, even when you're. It's such a, especially in this part of the world, it's such a struggle to make a film that it really needs to be something that you really need to say. And it's, in my case, it's always the case. I'm always expressing myself. It's always sort of a cry for help in a way. I'm always trying to. I take it as a mission every time I make a new film, because it's so difficult. And and not only because of that, because I'm aware of how powerful art is. I'm aware of the power of the tool that I have in my hands. So you feel like you need to work with it responsibly. And I'm aware at how much art, creates empathy, and works or talks to your emotional cord. And so you need to, and how much art throughout history has changed history, also has created movements, how many revolutions maybe have been ignited through a work of art, or through a song, or so you need to deal with it responsibly. For me, it's not just for the love of making something that is beautiful or aesthetic or entertaining, or there's a lot more behind it. And I think the moment that I recall the most, where I'm reminded of how much art can change things, and is when Zayn called me when he arrived to Norway, because they were, resettled. The whole family and Zayn and his whole family were resettled in Norway. Was when the moment he arrived to Norway, and he called me on WhatsApp video, and he was showing me his house, and I couldn't believe it. It was too good to be true. I couldn't believe where he was at that moment, and how his life shifted completely. And I truly believed at that time in the power of art, and what sometimes, what it's not always the case, obviously, but sometimes it does change lives.
Absolutely.
So this is the most rewarding thing for me.
Yeah, this is such an important point you are making. And I wish by that film, not only the life of the kid concerned changes, but that the whole world looks at children differently, because that was one child, and look at how many children there are in this world who are all over the place and who don't have a home, who don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And the world has become such an uncaring and callous place. And it's not like there is no money. There is a lot of it, but it's in the hands of very few people who are holding tightly to it and not letting go. And even during this COVID crisis, it's the people who had the most money are the ones who got the richest, and the poor became poorer. So every disaster that is happening in this world is seeming to make that gap, that divide, even bigger, instead of giving us a lesson and reuniting the entire human race. I mean, it's like we're already 7 minutes past the hour, and this is a conversation that we don't want to let go of you, Nadine. We are so lucky and so honored to have you with us that I feel like I don't want to close this session, but we don't want to abuse your generosity as well, with your time and with your willingness to be with us today, and to let us show Caramel, which everybody who is listening and who will see the event later, you can catch it online on our streaming channel by going to the website and clicking on where it says watch the films, and it will take you to the streaming platform. So thank you so much once again. And Michael, maybe you want to say a closing word, and we'll also give a chance to Nadine to say a final
my closing word is we're grateful for all that you're doing, and we want to see more.
Yes, totally.
No, thank you so much for allowing me to just discuss certain things with you, and talk about the situation, and thank you for this amazing initiative that you're doing, and I enjoyed it. I'm not very focused today, so many things happening, but I truly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we wish you courage, because being an artist in itself is a very courageous and selfless act. But on top of it, under the circumstances in Lebanon, with what's going on, to continue your journey, you need a lot of courage. And we applaud you. And we can't wait to see your next creations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I hope the people that will watch Caramel will enjoy it.
I hope so too. I'm sure. I know every frame. Yesterday I watched it again, and I was telling my husband, "Oh, he's going to do this now. He's going to okay, let me enjoy it." Why are you telling me?
And thank you, Michael, for first of all, remembering our wedding anniversary and following so closely everything we do, and it's a great honor. Thank you so much.
No, I learn a lot from every day.
I'm ending the broadcast, but we can continue to talk.
Okay.